Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm back doing my book review for August. You're going to have to excuse the setup. I would love to be sat in front of my bookshelves right now, but they are currently packed because we are obviously getting ready for our move and I don't need my books. So the bookshelf is no more. I'm surrounded by boxes, but I just wanted to make the best of a bad situation, sit down and film. My hair looks like this because I've been out in the rain and I've just taken it down for the sake of this video. No makeup, you know, the usual. But anyway, the August book club book was Paige Toon, 5 years from now. I have got no idea how I'm going to start this book review because honestly, this is one of the best books I have ever read. And I was talking to girls once people had started finishing it. Like as soon as I'd finished it, I was like, I have to talk to someone. And when I was like trying to explain my feelings towards this book, because this book is it's an emotional roller coaster. And when I was explaining it to people I was speaking to, I was like, I hate it, but I love it so much. I hate how it makes me feel, but at the same time I feel full. And like, it's really hard to explain. Like I felt empty reading it, but I also felt really full with love. It was such like a twisty sort of. I wanted to sit down and talk about the book because I read it, what's the day today? Today's Friday. I finished it Wednesday night and I've got a lot of thoughts about it, if I'm being completely honest. And I never thought a book would make me feel the way I feel about this one. So you can tell that I loved it that much because I've actually gone out of my way and done page markers, because the problem with books is that I get so invested and so consumed in the writing that I'm like, oh my god, I love it. I just love it, I just love it. But then I've got no point to refer back to. So I've done that with this one. Before I get into the spoiler section, I just want to give a summary to the book like I always do. It's basically about this boy and girl called Nell and Van, but he's also called Vian, and Ian with a V, so Vian, he's called that at the start of the book. So it's about these two and they meet as children and we follow their lives, and they come in and out of each other's lives every 5 years, hence why it's called 5 years from now. It's a little bit confusing at the start, I will say that. It threw me a little bit and I didn't gel with it, but if you get to the end of age 10, stick with it up until that point and then you'll just get with it. It's quite overwhelming when you first read it because there's a prologue, so in the future, and then you go back to the past and it flips in and out and sort of tries to set the scene a bit, and you've got loads of characters that you need to learn. So you've got Nell, who's the narrator, you've got Van, who's the boy that she meets, you've got her dad, who's called Jeff, you meet the Van's mum called Ruth. So there's loads of people setting the scene, and yeah, it's a bit overwhelming, but stick with it. It's about them, and they come into each other's lives every 5 years and we just follow them. And I've never read a book in this format before, which again I think is why I loved it so much. So we meet them when they are 5 years old and we follow them until they are 40, which is a really, really long period of time, and it's a really small book. It's not done in chapters, it's done in age sections, so age 5, age 10, 15, 20, 25, so on and so forth. And even though it's a small book, within the time age gaps you know everything you need to know and you feel completely invested in their lives. And I just want to praise Paige Toon for that. I don't know how she does it, but like I keep saying, it's such a small book to fit in that amount of time and life. I know it's fictional, but to be able to do that and not have any questions not answered and to have everything covered, like, it's just magical and it's incredible. And that is why after this book, I'm going to say she is my favourite author, because she just smashes it out of the park every single time. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. I'm going to recommend this book to every single person I know. I loved it so much. It will stay with me for the rest of my life, which is, it's a big, like, statement. But I just feel like when I refer back to reading when I'm older, I'm like, oh, when I was younger I read this, like this is going to be one of the ones that I remember and I look back on. Everyone that I've spoken to has loved it, so I'm now going to talk for a very long time about the spoiler section. Go away and come back when you're ready to discuss. Like always, make sure you put spoilers at the top of your comment when you leave comments below, just so people looking through the comments don't get spoiled if they just want to see if people are interested, stuff like that. But yeah, if you haven't got it, go out, read it, come back with your thoughts, because this book was incredible. So, starting with the spoiler section, I don't even know where to start. I have never been so emotional reading a book, I don't think. Like, I've read Me Before You by Jojo Moyes, and obviously that's a really sad one. Awful book. It's not an awful book, but it's just sad. If you've seen the film, if you've read the books, you'll know. But honestly, this book just did something to me. It absolutely broke my heart. Just thinking about it makes me want to cry. When I finished reading this book, I was sat in here and Neil wanted to go and watch something on the telly, and he was like, when are you getting ready? I was like, just give me half an hour. And when I finished it, it was really hot at the time, and I was sat on the end of my bed right there, and the fan was on, and I don't even think I was wearing any pyjama bottoms. I was just sat there in my underwear and a top, and I was just crying in front of my fan. And I went in and spoke to Neil, and I got so emotional, and I was like laughing and I was crying. I haven't ever made noises like that before. It's ridiculous. So I don't even know where to start. I just loved this book so much. I loved Nell as a character. I thought she was so incredible and strong, and she went through so much in this book. Honestly, it makes me emotional just think about it. She went through so much in this book, and she never put herself first, which was just like the thing she went through, the poor girl. I loved the relationship she had. She seemed like she was a really nice girl. One thing, I don't know if you all picked up on it whilst you were reading it, but it's something that completely skipped my mind, and then I read, like, as I was reading, I was like, a bit weird. When she was like, when she was out and her dad was like, use the payphone, and I thought, what? And then she had a perm, and I was like, obviously it's set, like when I was reading it, when those parts were up, it was set in like the 80s, 90s, because it's back in time, it's back in her life. And I really liked how Paige subtly put those points out there. So I read quite a lot of like Carol Matthews books, who's been around for like 20 odd years, and I feel like a lot of her books are very dated, because when she writes them they're really current, if that makes sense. Whereas with this, it was so subtle. I don't feel like this book will ever age, because it was like, use the payphone, I paused the or he paused the video. That's the line I remember. But those little things don't really age the book, if that makes sense. I feel like this will always be current. Which again, that's something I just loved. It's a really small thing about the book, but it's something I appreciate. Let's just start from the beginning, shall we? The blurb on the book never got me. It never pulled me in at all. And then when I started reading it, like I said in the non-spoiler section, I got really confused with the whole prologue with the boy in the hospital, and then learning about her as like a 5-year-old. I wasn't really interested. And then Ruth got in the car crash, or she got hit by a car, and then I was like, shit, like what's gonna happen? How is this gonna play out? I had no clue as to how that was gonna happen. And obviously they lived together from the age of 5 to 10. They had that really close bond, and then the rug got pulled out from under their feet, and Van had to go and live in Australia, and everything completely changed. So I was taken back. I didn't know how the story was ever going to pan out, but I was intrigued. As soon as Ruth got killed and got hit by the car, I was like, right, this is where it's going to start. Next time they see each other is when she's 15, so obviously she's going through being a teenager and having hormones and all of that, and I've highlighted her first kiss, which I thought was really sweet, how he always wanted to be her first. So they obviously had their first kiss, and then you can only imagine where it goes from there. And honestly, I couldn't get over how cringy it was when they were about to sleep together in the annex, and her dad walked in on them. I just the description of what was going on was just too much. I remember I sat in the bed and I was like, oh my god, like I cannot deal with this at all. Like it was cringy, but I found it really funny. And I like books. I feel like sometimes chick lit books can be a little bit too sexual. I don't know if that's just me. I feel like the author has just got put in like a really massive sex scene to make it sell or make a talking point, and I don't feel like that. I think it just doesn't really gel with me. I'm a big prude as it is, but things like that, like the way Paige did it, I thought it was really funny. On age 20 we then find out that Nell has moved on. She's gone to university. She's got a boyfriend called Joel, who I never really had like a massive thing for. There was never any problem with him. It's just not Van, is it? And that's another thing, he wanted to be referred to as Van from that point, or from when they were 15, because obviously they used to call him V and Via and whatever his bloody name was, and it reminded him of his mum, and that was really sad. And I just thought, that poor boy, the whole time he thought that he was the reason why his mum died, and it wasn't. He obviously thought that she went out to go and replace the blue paint that he'd used, but she actually went to go and get milk. And that was the thing, that's something really upset me, was how like they could have all blamed themselves, but it was just one of those things, and the person to blame was the person that hit her, and how that kept playing on his mind. I couldn't imagine being him. It was just really like heartfelt. Then we find out 5 years later, so from going from 20 to 25, she is now with Nick, who was always sort of like the playboy in the town, and he worked at the pub, and he was brothers with Drew. I don't know if you all remember Drew from when she was younger, and she always like had that thing with him, and then Van came and just basically shat all over that, and now she's with his brother. Again, that was something I was never expecting her to end up with. She obviously had to go back to where she lived because her dad got diagnosed with cancer, which is never a good thing to read. It's never a good thing anyway, but it's never a good thing to read in a book, because I loved her dad. I thought her dad was so sweet and so caring and so protective. So when I saw that he had cancer, I just thought, this is not going to be good. When she was 25, they obviously went over to Australia to go and visit Van. I wasn't a fan of Sam, the girlfriend, and then at the end of the chapter, when he broke it to her when she was pregnant and he proposed to her, I just thought, that's it. Like, how can they go back from that? Like, that's a massive thing for someone to have a baby. He's never going to leave Australia now. He's never going to come to the UK. It's never going to work. So when that ended, when section 25 finished, I didn't even know where it was going to go. So when I was reading, I read up to section 25 one day, or no, was it? Yeah, one day, and then the following day I read 30 onwards, so I read it in 2 sittings. Chapter 30 is obviously the one that starts the emotion starts. The whole point up to this point, the whole time I was reading it, I just felt so heartbroken for both of them, because it seemed like something that they both always wanted, but it was never the right time. And then when Sam fell pregnant, I was like, this is never going to happen. And then in section 30 we find out that the cancer's come back and her dad's got no time at all, and literally it absolutely broke me. I didn't cry. I think if I continued to read it, I would have cried because I would have been more invested in it, but because I took the break, because section 30 was quite a big section, because I took the break, I wasn't as emotional and as invested, because I'd not read it constantly, if that makes any sense. Obviously in section 30 we find out that Nell is a mum. She's got a son with Nick, but they're not together. They were together for 3 years and then it broke down. Again, I didn't know how that whole relationship was going to work. Obviously she's obviously always wanted to have kids and stuff, and it happened to be with him. So yeah, that's another thing. And then as soon as I read that, I was like, how is it going to work? Because she's now going to have her son, he's got his daughter. Like, how are they ever going to get together? The whole time I was like, come on, like let's get them together. It really upset me when they brought her dad home from the hospice and set all the bed up, and they obviously said their goodbyes and stuff. That really upset me. And how Van was like, I'm never going to be able to introduce my daughter to her dad. That got me. That's it. I've just read my little marker here, how her dad was finally accepting of Nell and Van being together. I think this whole time she felt really ashamed, and she felt like everyone would judge her because they were like stepbrother and sister for 5 years, but everyone never saw them like that. They just classified them as like best friends. And obviously when her dad walked in on them, she felt ashamed, but I think he was just on the defensive because that's his little girl and he doesn't want to see her in that position at all. What father would? But he basically gave her the blessing to be like I approve of you two. That made me cry. And yeah, that was it. He obviously passed away, which was just horrific, and they had the really big funeral, which again got me pretty bad. And then that was the last marker I made, because then I literally just flew through it and I was an emotional wreck. At the end of section 30, she obviously finally has that special night with Van, and she was saying that she felt really guilty because obviously her dad's just passed away, but at the same time she's spending the night with the guy that she's loved for like 25 years, which when you say it like that, that's my age. That's a really, really long time. So it ended sort of like on a bittersweet note. We find out over the past 5 years they have been seeing each other pretty much every year, whether it be her going over to Australia to meet him and her daughter, or him coming back. They've always like kept in contact and seen each other, which I think is the most time they've seen each other within like a 5-year time frame. And then they get published as a book, because obviously she's writing the children's book Fudge and Smudge, is it? Yes, Fudge and Smudge, and he's the illustrator, which I thought was really sweet. It's something that they had created together as childhood friends, or whatever you want to call them. And yeah, I really liked how that aspect came into play. And then we meet Ed. Should we discuss Ed? I like how it was full circle, and how he was there from like the get-go, because he rented, or he was with his parents when they rented out one of the like annexes or B&Bs or something. I can't really remember. So when we saw him, and I was like, I don't quite know how this is gonna go. There were the little lines that kept getting put out, like I can't remember what she said, but it was along the lines of like, she cares too much than what she should. And Van was getting a little bit not jealous, but he was a little bit quiet and subdued. And then when they had the building of the bunk bed scene for Libby and Luke, when Van was coming to stay with his daughter, and they got pissed and they were drinking and building the bed, and she started feeling things, but she felt guilty about feeling them. I was like, yeah, feel guilty, you shouldn't be feeling those, I want you to feel those for Van. But she obviously had the temptation there, whereas obviously he was in Australia, so it was a lot harder for her. I just thought to myself, this isn't going to go down the path I want it to go down. I don't want that to happen. So obviously throughout that section we find out what happens, and I lost myself on Paige. They had a barbecue, and I think Van then clocked on as to how how Nell felt, and she saw the way that she looked at Ed. And then on page 317 was when he breaks it off with her, and was like, we gave it a good go, and she put please, and he said don't cry. And then she said, how can you ask me not to cry? And he said, hold it together for them, as in the children. Awful, honestly, broke my heart. And then when it says, I've loved you as my sister, I've loved you as my friend, and God knows I love you as my lover, but, and he looks towards the maze where Libby is squealing with laughter, I love her more. Oh, honestly, I don't think I can read that book anytime soon, because just the emotion, I absolutely lost it at that point, and I never really gained it back. And he obviously let Nell go, and that was, there were no words at all. And then obviously they went their separate ways, and that was that. She got with Ed, she got her happily ever after, she got 2 more children, which is something that she wanted. I was really happy that she got the 2 children that she then had. She'd put her life on hold for such a long time, and I really wanted her to have a happy ending, and I wanted her to do that. I was really happy that she got that, but I was really disappointed that it wasn't with Van. But sitting and thinking about it, I know it's only a book, and I'm really analysing it, but they could have they never would have worked, because his life was in Australia, as was his daughter's. It's the right person at the wrong time, and I think that's what really got me the most, is that they both so wanted to be together, but it just never would have worked, and that's what really got me. I don't know. Finally it ends on 3 years later, so she's 43 I think, and Van and Libby come back, and Libby is actually going to go to university in the UK, and Luke is then about to go to uni as well, I think. And that I always, when I read that, I was like, if only she'd waited, they could have been together. He could have then moved to the UK, both been there. But I do feel like that Paige tried to make it out like Luke and Libby were going to have a thing. And I was saying to one of my friends on book club, maybe that there'll be a spin-off between Luke and Libby, which I don't want. I don't want to investigate this life anymore. I'm done with this because they didn't get together. But I feel like that was a route she was going to go down. And then the last page absolutely broke me, and it said, her friend Ellie said, if you love someone, set them free. If they come back, they're yours. If they don't, they never were. And Nell was basically saying that that's not true, and she put, I am happy, so very happy, but Ellie was wrong. I was always Vans, I always will be Vans, at least a part of me will. Under the table he hooks my little finger with his, and he knows it. And then I just cried for about half an hour, because that's the end of the book, and they still love each other and they'll never be together, and it just absolutely broke my heart. My review for this was a little bit all over the place, because I really wanted to go into depth about this book because I loved it so much, and I wanted just to share my thoughts and opinions on it. So I'm really sorry this is so long, but that book was honestly absolutely incredible. And I'm now in a mourning phase, and I don't know what to read because that was so incredible, and I just feel heartbroken, which is so funny. Leave me a comment below, let me know your thoughts. I felt like I had to do this video because I had so many thoughts, and because it's just going to stay with me. Yeah, let me know if you've ever felt like this about a book before. I've never felt like this before, so probably a bit OTT. But yeah, let me know your thoughts, let me know what you thought about it. Leave me multiple comments if you're watching and you want to write as I've been talking. I love books, obviously. Follow me on my Instagram, which is Book Club with Jess. We do a new book every single month. And yeah, I'm gonna go. I don't know what I'm gonna read next, but it's not gonna compare to that. Right, so I will see you all in my next video. Bye.